Hi and welcome to another YouTube video. In today's video I want to show you this haunted Victorian mansion that I've built while heavily utilizing the Werewolves game pack. And for this build I wasn't even looking for inspiration, it just came to me because I opened Pinterest originally to search for something else, some D&D armor inspiration, but when I opened it, like the first picture on my For You page basically was this very blurry image of a Victorian house that I can show you right now. It was super blurry, but I immediately loved the shape, I loved the colors, I loved this big round window that kind of had like some colors in it. Apparently maybe it was very hard to tell because it's a little bit blurry, but I knew exactly like how to execute that shape in The Sims, and I looked at the colors and it was like, oh my goodness, this may be my chance to use that beautiful wallpaper that we got for the exterior with the Werewolves game pack. Of course it can also be used for the interior, but I just wanted to use it on the exterior. And then I got to the roofing, and in this one the roofing was so interesting. There were so many areas where I ran into difficulties but found really cool solutions. So while I was doing this build I planned out in my head to create a video where I basically talk through difficult situations that you can run into while roofing in The Sims, and kind of explain different ways of how to solve a situation like this. But for this build in particular I'm going to tell you now, so you're getting a little bit of a sneak peek to the dedicated like how to improve your roofs or how to deal with difficult roofs in The Sims video that I'm hopefully going to be able to release soon. Okay, so the first roof difficulty was with the little tower. So we have this square tower basically as the center point of this build and as the focal point. And if you have roofs like this and you want to make roofs for towers of any kind, you usually run into the issue that you drag up the roof very high. And so when you drag down the corners of the roof to kind of make it extend over the edge of the walls, which just looks better in my opinion, you end up covering a lot of the walls of the whole floor underneath that roof, which is sometimes cool but sometimes also not wanted. And one thing that you can do is just like curve up the edges, but that only goes so far. So what I usually like to do is I use one square roof piece in this case, or also like a round roof piece or an octagonal roof piece, and just like drag it up, but then don't extend the edges, but pick a different roof piece. So like basically getting a second one to do the job. And that one I keep kind of flat, so I either make it flatter than the default configuration or I leave it like this, and then extend the edges of that one so that that roof does not cover as much of the floor beneath. And I haven't really seen that done so much, and I also only really got used to doing that when I did my like castle that was like surrounded by books, like fairy tale castle, when I ran into that issue. And that was the first time that that idea crossed my mind, that I could just use a different roof piece and just put them together. So I don't know if other people also didn't have that thought yet, or if that's something super obvious that just was new for me, but I hope it helps someone out there. The second roof difficulty was with the porch, because this is not a wraparound porch where I would use that square roof, but this is just a front porch. So what I did is I just used that one roof piece with like the one diagonal, and then it's like straight down and the other part is not roof. So I wanted to use that because I thought it looked better. So I dragged that across, but of course one area of the porch was more towards the front than the rest of it. So what I did was, first I just took a piece of like that same roof piece and just placed it one square of tiles further to the front than the other one, but with that I created sort of like an offset between the two, and they did not look like one consecutive roof piece anymore. So what I then decided to do was to push it back by one and just extend the front of like the roof overhang over like 1 or 2 times so that it would cover the columns in the front of the porch. And then I don't even know if I had to drag down the columns by one height-wise, but even if I had to do that, I don't think that's very much of a big deal or that much work. And that way it just looked like one consecutive roof piece, just the one half of it covering a little bit more in the front. And yeah, I thought that worked great. And one last little roof situation. After that, I'm going to talk about the rest of the build because I have a lot to say about that. But one last roof situation was with basically the middle roof, the like that covers the main area of the build, that was just like square and stuff and had the walls showing left and right. With that one, when I chose the kind of like offset colors for the walls, so most of the walls were white, but at specific areas I wanted to make them brown, and that led to that main roof covering an area of build where on the one side of the wall portion I needed a brown wall, and on the other half, or on the other side of it, I needed a white wall. And first I was like, oh no, should I like recolor the whole wall to kind of match the roof? But then I realized I can just take the roof and like drag it like 1 or 2 tiles back from the wall that did not have the right color, and I could just like copy it and set it there so that you don't see it on the other side, but just on the side that had the different color, in this case the white color I think, and color the wall with the white wallpaper. And that was that problem fixed. And that is also a problem that I've run into a lot in the past, where I would work with 2 different wallpapers on the exterior, and suddenly one roof piece just fits the wallpaper on the one side and not on the other side. It was like always like, oh no, I have to like recolor the walls, not considering that I can just split the roof in half and have one half with that wall color and the other half with that wall color. I don't know why that didn't cross my mind, but I don't know. My brain was in a good place for roofs that day when I built this, so I just wanted to share some of those ideas just in case you were just as stuck as me just like a few days before. But now, before we get to the exterior, more things about the exterior that I thought were like kind of creative or just cool and that I wanted to point out. So one thing that I first struggled with was finding the right windows, because I absolutely love the window from the reference picture. That one had 2 like shutters that were wooden. I think they were blue. I didn't end up making them blue in the final build, but I still wanted to have shutters for the windows. Then they had kind of a rounded stone frame around them, but the wood of the actual window itself within that stone frame was in kind of like a reddish wood, and I saw them and I could swear we had something like that in The Sims, but then I looked through everything where I thought it may be like the university pack and stuff where I would have expected something like this, but I could find nothing that fit. So what I ended up doing was a combination of 2 videos. So I used the shutters from the cottage living windows, but then I used the actual windows with the stone frames from the Vampires pack, and I hope the werewolves living in Moonwood Mill are not too mad with me for using Vampires windows, but I did in this build because they just fit together very well, I thought. So I hope it's not bothersome to you, because it does not look the best from the interior, but it does not look awful either. And then when I was kind of quote-unquote done with the exterior, before I added all of the vines growing on the walls and all of the landscaping that made this house look very much broken down, it did look very nice and magical at that point. I thought it would also fit very well into Realm of Magic, and at that point I liked it so much I was really heavily considering if I would just leave it that way and I don't know, not make it a haunted house or a broken down or abandoned house. There's also some lore there in my head, not really that much refined lore, but a little bit of lore in my head when it comes to the interior, so we're going to get to that in a second. So yeah, I was considering leaving it like this and having a more polished version of this house, but I ended up liking the idea of finally building an abandoned or haunted house again so much that I scrapped that and just put on all of those like vines and like dead rose bushes and stuff around the place, and also the broken down fence, and it was a bunch of fun. It was a real throwback to that haunted Victorian house that I built shortly before we got the paranormal stuff back, so a real blast from the past. But that was one of my first videos that kind of like got a lot of attention. So when this build started reminding me of that one, I don't know, it made me really happy because that house, like building that house was such a happy place for me, and I felt similar with this build, so I had a great time. And now we're already well into the interior, and for this interior I wanted to say that it's very different to the interiors of my haunted or abandoned builds that I've done so far, where I really took a lot of dirt and broken down stuff, and then I used all of the furniture and tipped it over with the tool mod and stuff. And I did similar things here, so you will still see a lot of broken down chairs and or just furniture in general, or just like flipped over tables and chairs and stuff. But I made sure that from all of the items that your Sims need to actually survive and to fulfill their needs and stuff, there are at least one of them, but mostly all of them that are left untouched, and it's more of the decoration items that are actually just like flipped over and not usable. But it's all just like to make it usable, to just really download it from the gallery and live there. You can do that fairly quickly. Like maybe you have like 1 or 2 chairs that you have to move onto a table or onto a desk to actually like use it to its full potential. But yeah, just in general, it's all functional, and that was important to me with this build because I kind of wanted to play it with myself when I was building it, because I kind of had a family in mind, and it was really fun building this in a more abandoned style and just thinking of reasons of why this may have been abandoned. And one thing that made me really inspired to do something like this is that Moonwood Mill is so filled with lore. And so while I was building this, I was watching Plumbella's video on the entire history of Moonwood Mill, and it was so much fun to hear how like the whole werewolf situation came to be, that they were originally spellcasters, which I didn't know when I started this build. So this looking like it would fit into the realm of magic world as well is just like so fitting. So I imagine they're living a family here of spellcasters. So this was originally a spellcaster's house, and they were trying around with like those wolfly instincts and just basically not really trying to create werewolves, but like connecting to this like wolfy nature of themselves and playing around with all kinds of herbs and stuff like that, and potions maybe. And so the 2 spellcasters that were a couple, like their first kid was a spellcaster too and also helped their cause and stuff, but then during, I don't know, like maybe the pregnancy with the second child or something, the mother got in touch with a lot of those substances that they were experimenting with, and the child turned out to be one of the first werewolves, but it was just like constantly enraged and already a werewolf as like a child and a toddler, which is of course not possible in the actual gameplay, but we can still make up our own lore. So later, when I got deeper into furnishing this build and stuff, I had the most fun decorating the children's room, because there is just like a lot of scratches in the children's room. There is maybe even some blood on the wall. There is some attempts with candles and stuff to maybe break the curse, because it was considered a curse by the parents maybe. And then also one fun little detail that I wanted to put in was that from upstairs, from the children's bedroom, throughout the very like small and tiny hallway, all the way down the stairs to the front door, you can see scratches of some of those claws that the werewolves have. So you can kind of see how maybe that child sim, when it got older, because in the children's bedroom I sized down all of the scratches so that they look like they have been made by a child werewolf, which again is not a thing as far as I know in the actual game, but it is in my headcanon for this house. So that was a child werewolf, but then when it got older, it kind of like broke out in an enraged state and kind of left the house and maybe never returned, and the parents felt so guilty they couldn't live in that house anymore with like all of the scratches and stuff and abandoned that house. That was kind of like my idea, and so the first werewolf came to Moonwood Mill. Of course, that does not like exactly fit into the lore of like the creation of Werewolves of Moonwood Mill and stuff, but I don't know, I just had fun in my head while decorating the interior, and I just wanted to do something like this. And I don't know if maybe you noticed, but I did have to cut out some of the parts of the interior from the speed build because it got a little bit long, for my liking at least, and so I cut out like the entry area to the backyard area. It's not really an entry area, you basically come in right into the whole staircase thingy, which I think is really cool with like the white flower in the middle, but then when you go through the middle of both of the staircases, you land in the actual entry area where there's place to put your shoes down, to kind of get your raincoat and stuff, because at least in my experience of gameplay it rains a little bit lot in Moonwood Mill, so but maybe that's also because I played in autumn and it's like always raining in autumn. So I cut that out. I cut out some parts of the downstairs bathroom, I think, and just bathroom stuff in general, but I tried my best to include as many details as possible in the tour in the end. And also at the very end of the tour, when there's already like the music playing and the end cards are showing, I kind of made a little bit of a compilation of what I did, because in the end for the thumbnail I wanted to have a thumbnail from like the thunderstorms, because I think the lighting is always really cool when a lightning bolt just hit. And so what I did was including like a little compilation of all of those like lightning strikes, and it's like softer than you maybe know, but if you are like very sensitive to light, if you are light sensitive, maybe don't watch like the last 5 seconds of the video, but it's really just in the end. And also one little thing for the tour, I did place down some of the spider webs to make it all look old, and I forgot that sometimes there are spiders showing in those spider webs, and you can see one of them in the very corner of the screen during the tour. So if you have a problem with spiders, just look into the middle of the screen and I think you're safe, but otherwise skip the tour. But I do think it looks like it turned out really cool, so I hope most of you are able to enjoy the tour, but of course always take care of yourself first. But on that note, I really hope that you enjoyed and liked the video. I hope it was able to be a little bit of a distraction, and I hope you have a lovely day, and I hope we'll see each other again.